Hello, my name is Thomas, and I'm here to tell you about a fascinating project called WWW&CE. This is actually an acronym which stands for Water, Waste, and the Circular Economy. The project started in 2019 and is a part of the Erasmus Plus program under Key Action 2, Cooperation for Innovation and the Exchange of Good Practices, Sector Skill Alliances. Almost all companies in the European Union, 99% of them, are small and medium enterprises, and they create 70% of all jobs there are in the European Union. SMEs have a very good future ahead of them, and they are very well placed to respond to certain environmental issues that are emerging right now. And they have a very good potential to grow in the green economy. SMEs and the economy in general, however, is facing several difficult bottlenecks, and these include skill shortages and the growing unemployment, growing job vacancies, and an especially dangerous issue, which is youth unemployment. And this project was aimed at monitoring requirements in skills, requirements in education, and responding to those requirements through cooperation between higher education institutions, education and training providers, and labor market agents to provide appropriate training needs. And the project forms an alliance between 68 different labor market agents across 13 countries in the European Union in order to provide certain outcomes, such as in developing instruments and work-based learning principles that will help workers and SMEs in the green economy to thrive in the future. And the partnership developed certain tools, certain instruments for work-based learning programs, and that are then piloted and evaluated. And these programs include training program for stronger learners in vocational education, training programs with 6 further vocational training courses, a train the trainer program, an integration program for the unemployed, and a bachelor's degree program with 4 different modules. In fact, these programs are aimed at teaching sector-specific skills in both the environmental technology and management. All the outcomes developed in the project are then disseminated among 68 project partners from 13 different countries who will also receive implementation advice. And extensive dissemination activities are also carried out. And some of the partners in the project include organizations from Germany, from Lithuania, from Hungary, Denmark, Norway, Finland, as well as Poland. And one of the partners that worked on the project from Poland is BFKK, or the Białystok Foundation of Professional Training. One of the outcomes developed by BFKK within the project is a very extensive report on green competences all across the European Union. And the report takes a very broad approach to the condition of small and medium enterprises, but it also goes into very great detail into the condition of these organizations in different countries all across the European Union. The report looks into how different countries approach green jobs, green competences, and tries to find things that can be learned from each other, from these experiences, and tries to disseminate them. The research conducted for the purposes of the report was led by Professor Bogusław Plawgo from the University of Białystok in Poland, with a very extensive research team. The concept of the project and the report is focusing on the threat of climate change and environmental issues. So the basic conception is that the natural resources are usually exploited by large companies, and that's a very big challenge to business. But small and medium companies are also affected by these challenges, and companies are also thinking how they can react and respond to them. Now, the best thing to do in the long term is to develop certain competences, develop certain skills that will make companies resistant to changes and able to react quickly to growing needs. To do that properly, first we need to think what green competences are and what skills we need to develop in order to be able to call them green competences. The report was actually developed to answer some of the questions in terms of competence needs in SMEs all across Europe, and it focused all the time on environmental management. Also, the report also tried to disseminate knowledge on best practices in environmental economy found in all these different countries. We had 7 countries studied, including Finland, Sweden, Norway, and each had a very different set of solutions and approaches to environmental issues. And all these experience, all these measures and solutions were gathered and then disseminated among these other countries in order to develop products and develop outcomes that will last and serve the purposes of SMEs. Everybody knows that rational and economical management requires a certain set of competencies. Education focusing on sustainable development is expressed in the UN documents, including the strategy in education for sustainable development. And these documents identify and prioritize the main goals of environmental education. And also they propose certain methods for their implementation. Now, this strategy, or the formal and informal goals that are laid out within the strategy, focus on the fact that learning and teaching should facilitate the understanding, the relationships between the social, economic, environmental, and other issues, all within the global, local, and regional context. The assumption here is that environmental education should involve whole communities and all communities. This means that this should include all age groups, all professions, as well as local, regional, and central decision makers. Now, while this assumption is completely clear and agreeable, it does pose certain challenges for preparing detailed and specific goals in terms of education, in terms of educational contents and methods that are aimed for these specific target groups. And this is one of the things that the report tries to tackle. In terms of the economy, the traditional approach to the economy states that environmentalism or environmental issues are the main focus of only large organizations, large enterprises which exploit the natural and environmental, for instance, in big industry and extraction like oil and coal. But frequently, the use of natural environment is also associated with specialized equipment, specialized installation. And this approaches changes, and now people know that every environment, every enterprise, every business uses the environment, exploits the environment, like through exhaust fumes, using energy, air conditioning, or by generating waste. The need for environmental management is not really fully explored and doesn't really include the significance of their impact in this area. It's actually worth taking a closer look on the importance of environmental management from the perspective of carrying out fundamental economic goals and developing modern enterprises. And there are numerous studies done in this field, and some of them are even quoted in the report. However, there are several main benefits that a company may have from sharing and caring for certain. First of all, there's the cost efficiency resulting from rational, sustainable resource and energy management. And there's the additional benefit from the changes in how a company works, how its work is organized. If a company has a changed organizational culture that has an indirect impact on growth of innovation and employee motivation as well. And there's also the aspect and the benefit of environmental activity that expands the scope of business and the scope of available outlets for products and services. Of course, there is also a relation between a company and the public authorities. And this is one of the traditional activities that a company needs to do, but it also creates a competitive requirement, especially when we take into account the legal regulation and environmental policies. And in terms of EU member states, Poland, Hungary, and other partners in the project, there's also the relationship with European authorities, establishing a relationship with European laws. So taking this into account, there are a number of different legal regulations that need to be respected. And these legal regulations are also variable. They change over time, and this also requires SMEs to be able to adapt and react quickly to the changing environment, up to date with environmental policies, and being able to conduct their business effectively. All these aspects that are quite challenging for small and medium enterprises all across Europe are also taken into account in the BFKK's report on the SME's condition and green economy. And it also takes very detailed look into how businesses are conducted in different countries all across Europe, and how different cultures have a different approach to environmental issues. And the report also tries to find the best possible practices to disseminate them between different partners. A major part of the WWW&CE project was developing training programs, such as training the trainer. And this was a very big and comprehensive task. And one of the partners that developed the training programs was also BFKK, the Białystok Foundation for Professional Training. And BFKK developed extensive and detailed training programs for trainers, for vocational schools, for continuous education institutions. And the goal of the training in general was to provide participants with universal consulting competencies that are going to be useful for their professional work, for their professional development, whether they work in sales, whether they work in fittings, installation specialists and so on, or whether they do maintenance of equipment and devices that are connected with the green economy. The participants of the training learn appropriate approaches, appropriate attitudes, appropriate motivation methods, and practical skills and instruments that will give them confidence to be good consultants for consumers, for end clients, and for regular people who want to have a new piece of equipment installed in their house, taking into account environmentally friendly solutions. This training program was also aimed at different target groups. So part of them was aimed at students or graduates of vocational schools, fresh graduates of vocational schools who have growth potential, potential for developing their skills, and who want to work with clients. And they were strong learners. The group that was also included in the project included employees who worked in companies that are providing services within the green economy or environmentally related sector. These people were referred to usually as working graduates, and they already have some professional knowledge in environmental issues because of the work they do. But perhaps they lacked some soft skills, some interpersonal competences in order to provide a decent level of services for their clients. The training was provided in blocks, depending on who we worked with, the blocks of 3 days of training through a 3-week period. And this was aimed at students who had the time to do that type of course. And also another type of training provided was training in themes, 1 day per week throughout a period of 12 weeks. And this was obviously aimed at employees who had regular work to do during the week and only had a limited time capacity. But both of these types of training was provided in conjunction with practical sessions in the workplace between those different training activities. Basically, it employed a dual education system. So on the one hand, you have theory classes and exercises with trainers, and on the other hand, you have practice sessions, and all these training courses finished with an examination part. And the training provided universal skills, but also different courses, for instance, focusing on interpersonal skills, including exercises with different types of scenarios that were relevant to different situations that might come up in of work of a consultant, for example, providing different types of skills, providing different types of competences like social and interpersonal skills. And they were practiced through scenarios and role plays where participants and trainers acted out scenes in situations where a salesperson listens to a customer's needs in order to determine their actual needs. And perhaps some of the competitors don't even know them fully. And then being able to provide them with reliable advice, or perhaps convincing them to get something that would be a decent service, but also focused on the environmental issues quite well. And that's basically it for the outcomes developed within the WWW&CE project by BFKK. Thank you very much for taking the time to listening to me. Bye.